What concerns me most is this specific sentence.
Someone drugs you or similar, well, that's a whole different story. But you are responsible for your actions, even if you choose to get drunk first.
Even if you choose to get drunk first. And then he caps it off by claiming that it's not victim blaming, but how is it not? You are responsible for your actions, even if you choose to get drunk first. Makes a very clear statement. You chose to get blind stinking drunk, and that's why you were raped.
That's not what I came away with when he said that. What I came away with is, getting drunk, sleeping with someone you otherwise had no intention of sleeping with, is your own fault. Regret does not equal rape. Even if a guy is buying you drinks, even if in the specific hope of getting you to loosen up and have sex with him, even if he knows you're really drunk when you give consent, you must hold yourself responsible for your own drunk decisions since you chose to get drunk. Now some might say that drunken consent is not consent.
Nearly a third of people in the UK think that a woman is partially or totally responsible for her rape if she was drunk. Drunken consent is not consent.
Now you might think she and or the study meant passed out like the Steubenville girl, but no, the question used the word drunk. What's interesting here is, the study, which she never linked to, but I found it and will, was asking if the woman was not at all, totally, or partially, responsible for her rape if. A lot of people answered, partially, I think due to confusing is it rape, with was the rape deserved. Jenn, the feminist in the video, says outright that drunken consent is not consent, not. Being passed out and unable to give consent, is not by default, consent. This isn't one rare nutjob feminist, she's pretty much your average third-wave feminist. However, I say drunken consent is consent, and here's why. Let's take a look at some different drunk sex scenarios. 1. A man gets very drunk and sleeps with a girl he just met at the party. He wakes up and realizes what an ugly fat slob she is, the fact he cheated on his girlfriend, and what a mistake it was. Is he a victim of rape? 2. A woman buys drinks for her date, gets him drunk, he is too drunk to walk or drive home, she lets him spend the night at her house, where she then offers him more booze, and seduces him into sex. Is he a victim of rape? 3. A guy goes to a party, meets his ex-girlfriend there, she offers him one drink after another, gets him boozed up, seduces him, his current girlfriend finds out. He claims he didn't mean anything by it, she got him drunk, it's not his fault. Do you think the current girlfriend is going to be mad at that woman for taking advantage of her boyfriend's intoxication? Or will she be mad at the boyfriend insisting that he chose to get drunk and therefore the fuck up is on him not his ex? Would anyone call him a victim of rape? 4. A girl wants a baby, her boyfriend isn't ready to be a dad, she gets her boyfriend drunk, hides the condoms, and seduces him. Normally he wouldn't have done this without condoms. But he's drunk, horny and stupid. Is he a victim of rape? Should he be able to opt out of fatherhood and child support since he was too drunk to consent to parting with his seed? 5. A guy goes to a party and gets wasted. He lays on the couch so drunk he is only barely aware of his surroundings. A woman climbs on top of him, kissing and rubbing him, takes off her shirt and bra, and asks, "Do you want sex?" The guy, only partially conscious, says, "Sure baby," and she gets on top of him, rides his cock, he squirts, she ends up pregnant. Is he a victim of rape? Was he too drunk to consent to parting with his seed? Would any court of law say that he was so drunk he couldn't give proper consent, thus he was raped and or doesn't have to pay child support? And don't give me that tired if he was that drunk he couldn't get it up and couldn't ejaculate, because that's as false as saying if she didn't want it, she wouldn't have gotten wet during physical stimulation, and wouldn't have orgasmed. I think it's safe to say the majority of people would look at each one of these scenarios, and not consider the man to be a rape victim. In each case they'd tell the man to own up to his choices. He chose to get drunk, therefore all decisions he made while drunk are his own fault. I think most men, women, and third-wave feminists would agree. The man needs to own up to his decisions, and I have never heard of a court case where any of these scenarios was referred to as the man getting raped, or too drunk to give meaningful consent, thus is somehow exempt from dealing with the consequences. Those 5 things only begin to sound like rape when we exchange the genders. Own up to your drunk decisions is only called victim blaming when women are the so-called victims. I think when examining whether something is rape, asking ourselves, but if it happened to a man, would we be calling it rape? Really should be standard policy. Feminists want everything to be called rape, but only when it happens to women. I think it's sad we live in a culture with so much female preference, that we cry a river of tears for a woman, but under absolutely identical circumstances we laugh hysterically at men when they're on the receiving end, or we shout man up at them. My point is, the debate on drunken sex and the responsibility you take. I say if you're conscious, it's not rape, therefore it's not victim blaming. Drunken consent is consent, and if you get so drunk that you pass out and are unable to respond in any capacity, it is rape. But even though it's rape, it's a situation you could have avoided by not getting that drunk to begin with. I know, that sounds like victim blaming, but it's not. I am not saying the act of rape is not rape because it was justified by your irresponsible actions. I'm merely saying your actions were irresponsible, thereby increased the chances of it happening. We seriously need to stop with this shouting, victim blaming crap every time someone suggests that people be more responsible. Saying be responsible to avoid being a victim of X is not the same thing as saying you deserve X because you were being irresponsible.
More importantly, what exactly is Thunderfoot getting at here? The topic is rape, and in context with this particular section of his video, date rape. According to him, if someone drugs you, you are free from all responsibility. But if you become so impaired by your own doing and, in his words, fully consent at the time, then you are responsible. It sounds like he's negating all of date rape, sans being forcibly drugged, as merely being regret sex. That implication is further reinforced by comparing it to drunk driving. The problem here is that one cannot be drunk off his or her face and fully consent to sex.
One cannot be fully drunk and consent to rape, or can they? If a woman is drunk off her face, and a man has sex with her, and has the same blood alcohol level, was it rape? If so, who is the victim, the man or the woman? If the woman accuses the man of rape because she was too drunk to consent, then the man could say he was too drunk to consent. Each one committed rape against the other since neither said no, but both were too drunk to legally consent to saying yes. Why is it that you can go to Vegas, get drunk and gamble away all of your money, and there is no takebacks when you sober up the next day? How come if you murder or steal something, saying I was too drunk to be held accountable for my decisions, never works? How come you can be really drunk and be held accountable for rape, but not be held accountable for saying yes to sex? Sounds to me like victim worship and female preference. I guess you could also say it's rape culture, a culture where everything is called rape but only when it happens to women and never when it happens to men. The real rape culture.
So now the question becomes, how drunk does a person have to be before the ability to consent is compromised? First off, I've heard the absurd statement from more than one person that any level of inebriation removes a person's ability to consent to sex. Really? That pretty much victimizes the whole of the Western Hemisphere.
Nope, just the women, and that's clearly the goal of this third wave, slut walk type of feminism, hollering about the victim blaming, in the same way that sexual harassment was once upon a time a common sense law that made it illegal for an employer to pressure an employee into sexual favors, eventually became any act even remotely sexual that displeases a woman. It went from employer and employee, to coworker, to fellow student, and transcended age. In the link called Sexual Harassment Hysteria in Lower Education Part 1 and 2, is a video all about elementary school students being suspended and expelled for sexual harassment and sexual assault, for silly things like playing tag, hugging, kissing a girl after she asked to be kissed, singing an inappropriate song near a female student, telling a friend his teacher looked pretty, and a dozen other innocent things. Hundreds of male students suspended or expelled from school in just one state alone, under these new feminist-inspired sexual harassment zero-tolerance policies. Look at how ridiculous sexual harassment laws have become, and let's face it, this isn't an accident, or the fault of the Democrats or the Republicans, this is the fault of feminists, and now they want to do the same thing with rape. They want to take a once-upon-a-time serious and vile crime like rape, and make it apply to everything, so that everything a man does is rape, but only when the woman chooses to say it was rape. And it's done not because feminists actually give a shit how many women are raped, but because they want to empower women over men. The mainstream ideas of first-wave feminism became our legal and cultural reality. The radical ideas of first-wave feminism became the mainstream ideas in second-wave feminism. The mainstream ideas in second-wave feminism became cultural and political reality. The radical ideas in second-wave feminism went on to become the mainstream ideas in third-wave feminism. The mainstream ideas in third-wave feminism are becoming reality as we speak, and the more radical ideas in third-wave feminism will be the mainstream ideas of fourth-wave feminism, and I shudder to think what the radical ideas of fourth-wave feminism will be. Feminism, for whatever goals it set out to originally achieve, has gone from what could be called a civil rights movement, to being a hate movement, and the hate is only getting worse. There is no fixing feminism, only fighting it. Here's an idea of what a rather common feminist thinks rape is and or ought to be. It's the same woman that said drunken consent is not consent.
So your feelings are hurt because you just got told that you're not as overpoweringly irresistible as you thought you were. So you call her frigid, and you tell her she's uptight, and you tell her that she's stuck up, and she gets upset because she thinks that you're going to break up with her and you've just said these really hurtful, cruel things to her, and she says, yeah, you're okay, no, you're right, it's fine, it's okay, I don't care, let's have sex. Do you really think that she has truly consented, freely and under no pressure, to have sex with you? Or do you think that you have bullied her and coerced her and manipulated her into doing something she didn't really want to do? Because that is rape, and that is the true danger of prude shaming, that people use it to rape other people.
Wow, and holy shit, Batman. And you thought creationists were out of their fucking skulls. This feminist is not unique. She's rather common in third wave feminism. If we don't stand up to this shit, this will be our future. A boy nags his girlfriend into sex, and will go to jail for it when she regrets it a month later. This isn't just a possibility, it is the reality they are pushing for. This, if nothing is done, I promise you, will be our future. We'll go from having sex with a woman that is passed out, is rape, which is obviously true, to very drunk is rape, to over the legal driving limit is rape, to any drug of any kind that impairs judgment, including their psychiatric medication or their fucking bipolar mood cycles, will render them unable to give meaningful consent. This is what they're pushing for. Look at what they did with the concept of sexual harassment. This is what they want to do with sexual assault and rape. And there are 3 things you can do about it. 1. Join the third wave feminists and help make it happen. 2. Stand by and do nothing as the third wave feminists make it happen. 3. Stand up and fight against it any way you can.